You know, I was thinking about how we treat our emotional wounds like they'll just go away if we ignore them.
Oh, yeah. We just kind of look the other way.
Right, like we pretend the bleeding has stopped. But truth is a lot like surgery. It might hurt for a moment, but it's the only way to actually get the healing started.
Wow, yeah. That is so true.
Because think about what happens biologically when you have a deep physical infection.
It's not pretty.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
If you just slap a bandage over a festering wound and pretend everything is fine, you aren't curing the infection.
You're just hiding it.
Exactly. You are simply hiding the damage from the outside world while giving the bacteria like the exact conditions they need to multiply.
Yeah, you're giving it this perfectly dark, protected, oxygen-deprived environment to just thrive.
Right. The white blood cells are dying, the tissue is becoming necrotic, and the infection is quietly preparing to spread systematically through your entire bloodstream.
It's terrifying when you think about it that way. And we see this reality manifest emotionally and spiritually all the time.
All the time.
As leaders at the Crosstalk Cafe here in South Park, we've walked this road of recovery ourselves, and we walk it alongside so many others.
Yeah, we do.
We walk it alongside you, listening right now. We understand that profound, almost overwhelming instinct to avoid the surgeon's table.
It's a natural instinct.
Right. I mean, we understand why you want to turn away from the truth of what you are carrying, because the truth is sharp.
Yeah.
It is a scalpel. It cuts away the dead tissue, and that cutting registers as pain.
It hurts. It really does.
But refusing the surgery out of a desire to avoid temporary pain doesn't keep you safe. It it basically guarantees that the emotional and spiritual injuries you're carrying will eventually consume your entire life.
And that is really the core mission of what we are doing here today. We are having a heart-to-heart conversation with you about the harsh but, beautiful reality of facing truth.
Ow.
We want to sit down with you right where you are and explore that terrifying breaking point, that moment when you finally realize that the pain of staying sick has become vastly worse than the fear of getting well.
That breaking point is huge.
It is,
Yeah.
because the avoidance, that protective wall we build around our addictions, our trauma, our hidden habits, it feels like a shield.
It really does feel like self-preservation.
Right. It feels like we are doing the smart, resilient thing by just pushing the hurt down, gritting our teeth, and carrying on with our lives.
Like we're being strong.
Yeah, but that avoidance is the very mechanism worsening the infection.
It is the ultimate psychological deception, which brings us to the absolute foundation of recovery, what we call Principle 1.
Principle 1.
Right. Principle 1 is the acknowledgement that we have been living in a state of profound denial about our hurts, our hang-ups, and our habits.
And denial is just so powerful.
Oh, it's incredibly insidious because of the illusion of safety it creates. We adopt this completely false belief that if we refuse to acknowledge the problem, it somehow loses its power to destroy us.
Like if we don't look at it, it's not there.
Exactly. We build this cognitive fortress and convince ourselves that the walls keep the danger out, when in reality, the walls are trapping the danger inside with us.
I wonder if denial isn't just a glitch, though.
What do you mean?
Like, I look at human behavior and I have to ask, isn't denial actually an evolutionary survival mechanism?
Oh, sure.
Right. When a person experiences a massive physical trauma, the body often goes into shock to numb the immediate pain so the person can, run away from the tiger, so to speak.
Right.
It seems like emotional denial is the brain's way of putting us into psychological shock.
That makes total sense.
We think, if I admit how much that betrayal destroyed me, I won't be able to get out of bed and go to work.
Yep.
If I admit I can't stop this habit, my entire self-image shatters. So the brain steps in and says, let's just not look at it. It feels like the brain is actively trying to save us.
And the brain is absolutely trying to save you in the short term.
Yeah.
You are describing the exact mechanism of cognitive dissonance and emotional shock.
Okay, so it is a protective thing initially.
Yes. When the reality of a trauma or an addiction threatens your core identity, the brain's default mode network just throws up a firewall.
Wow.
It suppresses the overwhelming emotion so you can continue to function biologically. You can still go to work, you can still make dinner for your kids, pay your bills.
You can just keep moving.
Right. But the problem is that this mechanism was designed for acute short-term survival, not chronic, long-term living.
Oh, that's such a crucial distinction.
It is. When you take a hurt, a resentment, or a deep-seated fear, and you lock it away in the dark room of denial for years, it doesn't wither away, it ferments.
It acts as an incubator.
Exactly. The psychological energy required to keep that firewall up is immense. And while the problem sits in the dark, it multiplies.
The incubator concept makes so much sense because, well, an incubator provides optimal conditions for growth, right? Warmth, darkness, isolation.
Exactly.
And while this toxic secret is multiplying in the dark, the external weight of it begins to crush us. We start carrying these unbearable, compounding layers of guilt and shame.
And those are two very different things.
Right. They act very differently on the human psyche. Guilt is the heavy realization of your actions. Guilt says, I made a terrible mistake. I hurt someone. I broke my own moral code.
Right. Guilt focuses on the action, but shame targets the identity.
Yes.
Shame is like the toxic mutation of guilt. Shame says, I didn't just make a mistake, I am a mistake.
Wow. That's a heavy burden to carry.
This is crushing. Shame tells you that if anyone truly knew what was inside this incubator, they would be fundamentally disgusted by you.
That fear of being found out.
Yes. And neurologically, carrying shame keeps your body in a constant state of low-grade fight or flight. Your cortisol levels just stay elevated.
Your body never rests.
Never. Your nervous system never fully relaxes because you are constantly scanning your environment, terrified of being found out.
Right, so you hide the wound deeper.
You reinforce the walls of denial, and the physiological and spiritual burden just gets heavier.
Let me offer a physical way to visualize this.
Okay.
Imagine you are walking down the street and you suffer a terrible fall, resulting in a severe broken arm, like a compound fracture.
Man.
Right, the kind of break that absolutely requires a doctor to reset the bone and put it in a cast.
Yeah, you need the hospital.
But instead of going to the hospital, your denial kicks in. You decide you are going to hide it.
Okay, I see where this is going.
You go to your closet and you put on a massive, heavy wool winter coat.
Oh, wow.
You slide your broken, mangled arm into the sleeve, wincing in agony, and you zip the coat all the way up to your chin.
That sounds miserable.
It is. Now, you are walking around in the middle of July, sweltering, exhausted, wearing this suffocating coat.
Just to hide it.
Just to hide the injury from your family, your coworkers, your friends. Because they can't see the jagged bone, you try to convince yourself it's just a bad bruise.
But underneath?
Underneath that heavy wool, the bone is experiencing what doctors call a malunion. It is setting wrong.
Oh, that's terrible.
The jagged edges are tearing into the surrounding muscle tissue. The pain is no longer just in your arm. It is quietly radiating through your entire nervous system, affecting your posture, causing blinding headaches, and destroying your ability to sleep.
A malunion of the spirit. That is a brilliant way to understand it.
Yeah, it really captures it.
You are walking around in the sweltering heat of your daily responsibilities, sweating under the weight of this suffocating winter coat, all to maintain the illusion that you are perfectly fine.
And it takes so much energy.
But the tragic irony of the heavy coat is that it rarely fools anyone. The people who love you usually know something is deeply wrong. They see you wearing a winter parka in the dead of summer.
They see the sweat.
They see the physical exhaustion.
Yeah.
They notice how you snap at small inconveniences. They see you wincing every time someone bumps into you.
But you won't admit it.
You are so fiercely committed to the denial, so terrified of the shame, that you refuse to let anyone look at the arm.
Because taking off the coat means exposing the deformed, broken limb. And exposing it means someone is going to have to touch it.
Yes.
Someone is going to have to grasp that bone and physically break it again to set it right. That brings us right back to the surgery metaphor.
It does.
Letting the great physician examine that broken bone is going to cause a sharp, blinding moment of sheer agony.
It will require confronting the reality of the damage, which is excruciating.
Yeah.
But we have to differentiate between the pain of decay and the pain of healing.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, the pain of keeping the coat on is the pain of necrosis. It is the slow, rotting death of your potential, your relationships, and your peace.
It's a useless pain.
Exactly. The pain of the surgery is a controlled trauma. When a surgeon makes an incision, they are causing trauma to the tissue, but it is a trauma with a permanent restorative purpose.
It has a goal.
Right. When you finally unzip that heavy coat of denial, when you pull your arm out and look at your hurts, your hang-ups, and your habits under the blinding sterile light of truth, it is going to ache profoundly.
It's going to hurt.
But that ache is the prerequisite for circulation returning. It is the only way to establish a foundation for structural, lasting health.
This raises a massive question about human psychology, though.
What's that?
If the coat is suffocating us, And the malunion of the broken bone is sending radiating agony through our entire body. What keeps the coat zipped up?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Why is it so incredibly difficult for a human being to simply raise their good hand and say, I am hurt, I am broken, and I need help?
It comes down to a fundamental equation in the realm of mental health and recovery, what we call the pain-fear ratio.
The pain-fear ratio.
Yes. Human beings are biologically and psychologically wired to maintain homeostasis. We desperately want to maintain the status quo.
Even if it's killing us.
Even if the status quo is slowly killing us, simply because the status quo is predictable. The unknown is registered by the brain as a literal threat to survival.
So we cling to what we know.
We only become ready to complete Principle 1. We only become willing to step out of denial when the daily compounding pain of staying exactly as we are finally becomes greater than our visceral fear of changing.
The moment the pain surpasses the fear, that is a razor-thin threshold.
It really is.
But I have to push back on the nature of this threshold.
Okay, let's hear it.
Why does human nature seemingly require us to reach absolute catastrophic misery before we accept help?
It's frustrating, isn't it?
It is. Are we just stubbornly wired to tolerate the intolerable? It seems so tragic that a person has to lose their marriage, their job, or their health hitting what people call rock bottom before they are willing to simply take off the coat.
It is deeply tragic, but it is rooted in how our nervous systems process chronic versus acute stress. It is a phenomenon known as sensory adaptation or habituation.
Habituation, okay.
If you walk into a room that smells like smoke, your brain registers it immediately as a threat.
Right, you notice it right away.
But if you stay in that room for an hour, you stop smelling the smoke. Your brain adapts to the environment to save processing power.
Wow.
The same thing happens with emotional pain and destructive habits. The daily chronic pain of an addiction or an unhealed trauma is something we learn to accommodate.
You just get used to it.
We change our psychological stride to accommodate the limp. We acclimate to the misery.
That's terrifying.
It is. Taking the coat off and dealing with the shattered bone feels like an acute, sharp stress. The amygdala, the fear center of the brain, screams, no, avoid that acute pain. Just keep limping. The limp is familiar. The limp is safe.
So we tolerate the intolerable because it happens by degrees. We don't notice the water is boiling until we are already cooking. But let's look closer at the fear side of this pain-fear ratio. What exactly is the amygdala screaming about?
Well,
I mean, we are afraid of the pain of the surgery, yes, but I think it goes much deeper than physical or emotional discomfort. I think we are terrified of ego death.
Oh, absolutely. Ego death is a huge part of it.
If I have spent the last 15 years defining myself by my ability to hold my family together, to be the strong one, what happens when I admit that I am actually self-medicating just to get through the day?
Right. Who are you then?
Exactly. Who am I without this armor? Who am I without this habit that has served as my coping mechanism, my secret escape, my closest companion for a decade?
You are hitting on the deepest terror of the human experience, the loss of identity.
It's terrifying.
Stepping into the unknown of recovery feels like stepping off a cliff in the pitch dark, because you are being asked to abandon the very survival strategies that have kept you functioning.
The things that kept you alive.
Yes. You have built an entire architecture of self around your denial. The fear is a towering wall of judgment.
Oh, the judgment.
You are terrified that if you tell the truth, your spouse will leave you, your church will ostracize you, your friends will pity you.
That they won't look at you the same way.
Right. You harbor a secret, terrifying suspicion that you are fundamentally unfixable and that going through the surgery will just confirm that you are a hopeless case. That fear weighs thousands of pounds.
So the tipping point, that elusive moment of breathing through, only occurs when the chronic pain finally spikes so high, so sharply, that the brain's habituation fails.
Yes, the habituation has to fail.
The brain can no longer ignore the smoke because the house is fully engulfed in flames. The limp becomes a complete physical and mental collapse.
When the compounding cost of maintaining the denial finally bankrupts your spirit.
Or it bankrupts your spirit, wow.
When the exhaustion of hiding eclipses the terror of being seen. And I want to ask you, the person listening right now, to evaluate your own ratio today.
It's a crucial question.
Think about the specific hurt or habit you have been hiding. Where does the balance sit right now? Is the fear of what people might think, the fear of the hard emotional labor, the fear of the scalpel, is that fear still outweighing the suffocating exhaustion of your daily life?
Or are things shifting?
Right. Are you beginning to feel the tectonic plates shift as the pain of carrying that heavy winter coat finally become too heavy for your legs to support?
That's a heavy realization.
Recognizing that your pain has finally surpassed your fear is not a moment of defeat. It is the beginning of a miracle.
It is the moment the armor cracks and the light finally gets in. And, we don't have to guess what this exact tipping point looks like.
No, we don't.
This isn't just a modern psychological theory developed in a clinical laboratory somewhere. This is a visceral, deeply human experience that stretches back through all of recorded history. We see the raw reality of this threshold beautifully documented in God's Word.
Specifically, when we look at the life of David.
Yes, David.
David provides the perfect case study. Here's a man who understood the crushing pressure of maintaining an image. He was a king.
A king, a celebrated warrior.
He was the leader of a nation, constantly in the public eye. He had every earthly reason to keep his heavy coat zipped tightly.
He had everything to lose.
Exactly. He had the resources to maintain his denial, to silence his critics, and to bury his failures. Yet we see his absolute devastating breaking point in Psalm chapter 6, verses 2 and 3.
In these verses, we are essentially reading the private journal of a man whose pain has definitively surpassed his fear.
The habituation has failed him.
He can no longer maintain the illusion of control. He is forced to stare directly into the reality of his own spiritual and physical decay.
Now, what does he write?
He writes, "Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in deep anguish. How long, Lord, how long?"
Let the sheer weight of those words settle in your mind. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in deep anguish. How long, Lord, how long?
It's so raw.
This is not a polite, composed, theologically polished prayer delivered in a quiet sanctuary. This is a guttural cry.
It's desperation.
This is the sound of a human being collapsing under the unbearable density of his own reality.
And the phrasing he uses is incredibly clinical, almost diagnostic.
Very diagnostic.
He doesn't just say, "I am experiencing sadness." He starts with, "I am faint." He is noting a total depletion of his physical energy reserve.
That's awesome.
He goes further and says, "My bones are in agony," and then he immediately links that physical torment to his internal state. "My soul is in deep anguish."
That direct connection between the bone and the soul is profound.
It really is.
David's agony of the bones and his deep anguish of the soul perfectly describe what modern science now understands about the psychosomatic nature of trauma and emotional struggles.
Yes, how the body stores it.
For a long time, society tried to separate the mind and the body, treating them as two entirely disconnected systems. But they are completely intertwined.
You can't separate them.
When you are carrying a massive, unaddressed emotional burden, when you are living in a state of rigid denial, the stress doesn't just float harmlessly in your thoughts. It takes up physical residence in your biology.
The body keeps the score.
The body absolutely keeps the score. The physical and emotional toll that unaddressed pain takes on a human being is catastrophic.
It breaks you down.
Emotional denial requires the continuous release of stress hormones. Over time, this chronic physiological arousal manifests as physical exhaustion. Your adrenal glands fatigue.
You're just constantly drained.
Your immune system is suppressed, making you constantly sick. You develop chronic muscle tension, debilitating migraines, gastrointestinal disorders.
So when David says his bones are in agony,
he might be describing the literal inflammatory response of a body pushed beyond its limits by psychological stress.
wow.
It takes an immense, quantifiable amount of caloric and neurological energy to repress trauma, to suppress guilt, and to maintain a facade.
You are quite literally burning your body's essential resources just to keep the truth locked in the incubator.
Exactly. So when David cries out about his bones and his faintness, he is describing the inevitable physical collapse that occurs when the mental health struggle can no longer be contained by sheer willpower.
The coat has become too heavy for the skeleton to bear.
It's crushing him.
But there is a specific part of David's cry that always makes me pause and wonder about his state of mind.
Which part?
When he screams, "How long, Lord, how long?" It sounds almost accusatory.
Right.
It sounds like he is profoundly frustrated with God, as if he is saying, "Why are you taking so long to fix this mess? Why are you leaving me in this pain?"
It does sound like that.
Is he angry at God, or is something else happening with his perception of time? Isn't he actually just waking up to how long he's been hiding from himself?
That is a phenomenal distinction. When we are deep in the throes of our pain, our immediate reflex is to look outward.
We blame everyone else.
We blame our circumstances, we blame our spouses, we blame our bosses, and we certainly blame God for the duration of our suffering. We demand to know, how long will you let this happen to me?
Why are you doing this?
But what is actually occurring in that exact moment of crisis is the sudden, shocking collapse of time dilation.
Time dilation.
When you are in denial, time moves strangely. You survive day by day, hour by hour. But when the denial shatters, you suddenly experience a panoramic view of your life.
Oh, wow.
You look back and realize with sheer horror, I have been living like this for months, for years, for decades.
It is the horrifying shock of realizing how long you've been wearing the winter coat.
Yes.
You suddenly feel the oppressive heat. You smell the stale sweat of your own fear. You feel the radiating, sickening ache of the broken bone. And the reality crashes over you.
It crashes hard.
I have been carrying this rotting limb for 10 years. How did I let it go in this long? How did I waste a decade of my life pretending I was fine?
It is a moment of acute grief for lost time.
That's heartbreaking.
And while that realization is agonizing, it is absolutely vital for anyone entering recovery to understand this. Feeling the deep anguish is not a sign of failure.
It feels like failure, though.
It does, but it is the very evidence of your awakening. So often, when people first step into the Crosstalk Cafe, when they finally drop the facade and allow themselves to feel the grief, the anger, and the crushing exhaustion, they completely panic.
They think they're doing it wrong.
They think, I must be doing this recovery thing wrong because I feel substantially worse right now than I did when I was drinking or when I was isolating.
Exactly. I hear it all the time. People say, I started trying to get healthy. I started being honest, but now I just feel like I am falling apart completely. My anxiety is through the roof. The pain is worse than ever.
But the falling apart is simply the physical sensation of taking off the coat.
It's the unzipping.
The feeling of deep anguish is not a regression into sickness. It is the first true progression toward health.
That is such a vital reframe.
It is the mandatory, necessary realization required in the early stages of recovery to actually be rid of the pain. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel.
You cannot heal what you refuse to feel.
Your nervous system has to process the backlog of suppressed emotion. David had to feel the literal agony in his bones before he can legitimately ask for the healing. The anguish is the physiological alarm bell that finally prompts you to call the surgeon.
Think about a limb that has fallen dead asleep because the circulation was cut off.
Oh, that's a perfect way to picture it.
When you finally move and the blood rushes back into the leg, the pain is blinding. It is an excruciating pins and needles agony.
It hurts so much more than when it was numb.
But that pain isn't a sign that your leg is dying. It means circulation is returning.
Yes.
It means the nerve endings are firing again. It means the tissue is coming back to life. It means you are not numb anymore. And being numb is what was slowly killing you.
Precisely. The numbness was the true danger.
Yeah.
The numbness allowed the tissue to die quietly.
Right.
The pain you feel when you step out of denial is the definitive evidence of life returning to your spirit. But we cannot just leave you sitting in the anguish.
No, we definitely can't.
We cannot just spend this entire time talking about the suffocating coat, the shattered bone, the terrifying surgery, and the returning pain without talking about the outcome.
The hope.
Because after sitting in the heavy, crushing reality of David's physical and mental anguish, we have to lift our eyes and look at what waits on the other side of the surgeon's scalpel.
We have to move from the agony of the wound to the ironclad promise of the cure.
The guarantee.
Because the great physician does not perform the surgery of truth just for the sake of causing pain. He does not cut just to expose the rot.
No, never.
He performs the surgery for the express purpose of complete holistic restoration. And there is a profound, breathtaking promise found in God's word that speaks directly, intimately to the person who is sitting in that terrifying anguish right now.
It is found in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 17.
Jeremiah 30.1 at some.
And it says this, I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, declares the Lord, because you are called an outcast, Zion for whom no one cares.
Let me repeat the first half of that. I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, declares the Lord.
That's a promise.
That is a definitive unilateral promise. It isn't a maybe. It isn't a conditional statement like, I will restore you if you perform well enough, if you clean yourself up, or if you promise never to make a mistake again.
Right. There are no conditions attached.
It is a divine guarantee of health and healed wounds. But it is the second half of that verse that absolutely shatters my heart and rebuilds it every time I hear it.
Because you are called an outcast, Zion for whom no one cares.
It is arguably one of the most beautiful, countercultural, and specific promises in all of Scripture.
It really is. And to understand its weight, we need to deeply explore what it actually meant to be called an outcast in the historical context of Jeremiah and what it means for us today.
Let's do that.
In the ancient world, being an outcast meant you were physically exiled from the camp or the city. Whether due to leprosy, disease, or extreme poverty, you were stripped of your social safety net.
You are on your own.
You were entirely vulnerable to the elements, to predators, to starvation. It was a social death sentence.
That's incredibly bleak.
Today, the outcast experience is often less visible, but just as lethal. When we are trapped in the cycle of hurts, hang-ups, and habits, emotional isolation becomes our constant, suffocating companion.
Mental health struggles and addiction are inherently isolating diseases.
Inherently.
They thrive in the dark of isolation, and they actively manufacture more isolation to ensure their own survival.
Because of the toxic mechanics of guilt and shame we discussed earlier, guilt and shame are relentless voices that constantly whisper in your ear, convincing you that your brokenness is entirely unique.
They tell you no one else could possibly understand.
Exactly. They tell you that you are an outcast by your own doing. They tell you that you are fundamentally unlovable, that your needs are a burden to everyone around you.
That you're just too much to handle.
And that if your church, your family, or your friends truly knew the dark thoughts inside your head or the things you do in secret, they would recoil in horror. You become entirely convinced that you are someone for whom no one cares.
Let me try to put a visceral picture to that specific feeling of being a modern outcast.
Okay.
Imagine you are sitting in the middle of a brightly lit, crowded room.
Right.
Maybe it is a vibrant neighborhood party, maybe it is a chaotic family Thanksgiving dinner, or maybe it is sitting right in the middle of a packed pew on a Sunday morning. You are completely surrounded by people, bodies are everywhere.
Right. No physical isolation.
People are talking, laughing, sharing stories, interacting, but you feel like you are speaking a dialect that no one else in the room possesses the ability to understand.
Oh, man.
You are entirely present physically. Your body is taking up space in the chair. But the shame of your hidden habits, the overwhelming weight of the heavy coat you are wearing under your clothes completely isolates you from any genuine human connection.
You're there, but you're not there.
You can see everyone else experiencing joy, but you feel completely unseen. You are surrounded by hundreds of people, but you have never felt more agonizingly alone in your entire life.
You have just described the exact phenomenology of alienation.
It's such a heavy feeling.
It is the experience of the modern outcast. The outcast today is not necessarily the person sleeping on the street outside the city gates. It is the person who is emotionally exiled by their own shame.
Exiled from within.
You smile, you nod, you answer, "I'm fine, how are you?" But inside, you are spiritually starving for someone, anyone, to recognize the specific language of your pain. You feel like a ghost haunting your own life.
And the incredible, counterintuitive, almost scandalous beauty of Jeremiah 30.1 scene is the because.
The because is everything.
God doesn't say, he will heal you once you finally figure out how to speak the language of the crowded room. He doesn't say he will restore you once you stop acting like an outcast and get your life together. He specifically, intentionally targets his promise of restoration toward those who feel utterly abandoned. He says, I will restore you because you are called an outcast.
The theology of that because is staggering.
It really is.
Let that reality sink into your bones. The very thing that you believe definitively disqualifies you from love, your profound brokenness, your suffocating shame, your deep-seated conviction that you are an uncared-for outcast, is the exact specific credential that qualifies you for this promise of God's healing.
It's the credential.
God's economy of grace works in complete inversion to human merit. He is magnetically drawn to the outcast. He moves deliberately toward the brokenhearted.
He's not looking for the healthy people.
He is the surgeon who bypasses the healthy and specifically looks for the most complicated, festering, hidden, socially unacceptable wounds and says, right there, that is where I'm going to work my greatest masterpiece of restoration.
It completely flips the entire script of human religion and self-improvement. We spend 90% of our daily energy trying to pretend we are not outcasts so that we can earn acceptance from our peers. We manage our image obsessively.
We work so hard at it.
And God looks at us and says, your acceptance begins the exact moment you admit you are an outcast.
The exact moment.
You don't have to hide the mangled, broken bone anymore. You don't have to pretend you understand the language of the crowded room. You can just sit down exhausted and say, I am the one for whom no one cares. I am the one wearing the heavy, dirty, rotting coat.
And in that moment of total honesty, the great physician steps into the room.
Which brings us to the ultimate practical crux of this entire conversation.
Right, the application.
We have bridged from the theological promise of restoration to the actionable step. We understand the biology of the festering wound.
We know the neurological reality.
We know the emotional reality of hitting the tipping point where the pain of staying the same surpasses the fear of changing.
The pain-fear ratio.
We have looked unflinchingly at the profound physical and emotional anguish of staying in denial. And we see the beautiful, guaranteed promise of restoration for the outcast. Now, what do we actually do with our physical bodies and our minds today?
That's the key. We have the diagnosis.
Right. We see the doors of the operating room standing open. How do we actually get ourselves onto the table?
There is a mandatory, non-negotiable requirement of recovery. If we genuinely want to be rid of our pain, we must face it.
Face it head on.
We cannot skirt around the edges of it. We cannot intellectualize our trauma. We cannot just read psychology books about our habits and hope the knowledge cures us. We have to actually do the hard, gritty, somatic work of moving through the hurt in these early stages.
We have to face it. And facing it means surrendering those festering wounds.
Yes.
We have to come to the profound realization that our best thinking, the very brain that created the denial to protect us, got us into this mess.
Our own brains got us here.
Our own strength, our own willpower is simply not going to get us out. We cannot perform the surgery on ourselves. The denial and the shame are structurally too heavy for us to lift on our own.
That brings us to the core mechanism of the solution. Surrender.
Surrender.
Surrendering our lives, our wills, and our hidden wounds to Jesus Christ, who we recognize as the great physician.
The ultimate surgeon.
If we return to that surgery metaphor one last time, you are the patient with a systemic, life-threatening infection. You have finally realized you cannot treat it yourself with over-the-counter bandages.
Band-Aids aren't going to work.
You have finally taken off the suffocating coat. Now, you have to lie down on the stainless steel table, expose the rotting wound, and let the surgeon do his work. Jesus Christ is the one holding the scalpel.
And he's the only one who can perform the surgery of truth perfectly.
Yes, perfectly.
Because human surgeons, even the most skilled and well-intentioned ones, make catastrophic mistakes.
We really do.
Human attempts at forcing truth can sometimes be brutal and traumatizing. People can use truth like a blunt weapon to bludgeon us. We've all experienced someone delivering hard truth in a way that just causes more damage.
Oh, definitely.
But the great physician uses truth like a microscopic, laser-precise scalpel to heal us. He perfectly, flawlessly balances grace and truth to cure the infection without killing the patient.
That precise clinical balance is absolutely essential for survival. Truth without grace is just condemnation. It is a butcher's knife.
It's just judgment.
If God just cut us wide open and showed us all our rotting failures, all our selfishness, and all our destructive habits without offering a safety net of unconditional love, the sheer psychological shock of that truth would destroy us. We would bleed out on the table.
We wouldn't survive it.
But conversely, grace without truth is just medical negligence. It is enabling.
Wow.
If God just offered warm feelings of love and acceptance, but never actually addressed the lethal infection of our sin and our habits, we would die of the disease while feeling comfortable.
Comfortable but dying.
Jesus Christ brings both to the operating table simultaneously. The sharp, unyielding scalpel of truth to cut away the necrosis of denial, and the overwhelming, sterile, infinitely healing environment of grace to ensure that the wound is meticulously cleaned, bound, and structurally restored.
But I have to stop and push back on the word surrender for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because in our modern culture, the concept of surrender carries an immense amount of negative baggage. It sounds entirely passive.
Like you're giving up.
It sounds like losing a war, waving a white flag, and throwing your hands up in pathetic defeat. It sounds like lying down and letting someone else do all the work while you just give up your agency.
It does sound like that.
But when we talk about letting the great physician perform this surgery of truth, when we talk about what actually happens in recovery, it doesn't feel passive at all. Honestly, Walking into that operating room, knowing with absolute certainty that the scalpel is going to hurt, and intentionally, voluntarily lying down on that table, that actually requires an incredible amount of active muscular courage, doesn't it?
It requires the highest, most potent form of courage a human being can possibly muster.
Yeah.
I want to validate that completely. If you are listening to this right now and you are contemplating taking that step, you need to know that stepping out of the fortress of your denial and voluntarily climbing onto the operating table of truth is the absolute bravest thing a person can do.
It's the opposite of defeat.
Surrender in the context of recovery and faith is not a passive white flag of defeat. It is the active, fiercely courageous choice to stop fighting the wrong war.
Stop fighting the wrong war. That is the exact phrase.
Wow.
You have been fighting a massive, exhausting war to maintain the illusion. You have been fighting your own conscience to keep the coat zipped up.
You have been at war with your own reality, fighting to keep the truth at bay.
Exact.
Surrender means looking at the great physician and saying, I am actively laying down the weapons of my denial. I am making the conscious, terrifying choice to trust the surgeon with my life.
That takes so much trust.
It takes immense psychological strength to be that profoundly vulnerable. It takes staggering bravery to say, here is the ugliest, most infected, most shameful, horrific part of my life. I am giving it to you because I cannot carry it anymore, and I trust you not to destroy me when you see it. Wow. That is not weakness. That is the ultimate triumphant act of courageous trust.
And the incredible, miraculous thing is the very moment you make that brave choice, the moment you enact that surrender, the healing process biologically and spiritually begins.
Right then and there.
The crushing pressure of the infection starts to relieve immediately. The heavy, sweat-soaked winter coat is gone. Yes, there is the soreness of the surgery.
Of course.
There is a tender, sensitive recovery period where you have to go through physical therapy, so to speak. You have to learn how to walk without the limp that defined you for a decade.
A whole new way to live.
You have to learn how to process your emotions without reaching for the habit that used to numb them. But it is the soreness of new life, not the sickening agony of decay.
It is the exact difference between the pain of a muscle tearing and growing stronger because you subjected it to resistance training versus the pain of a muscle atrophying and wasting away because it is disease-ridden.
One pain is productive, the other is destructive.
One pain leads to incredible strength and mobility. The other pain leads to paralysis and death. The surgery of truth leads to vibrant, resilient life.
So as we wrap up this heart-to-heart conversation today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over in the quiet moments of your day.
A great thing to think about.
We have talked extensively about the outcasts, the heavy armor of denial, and the pain of the wound. But I want you to think about the future of that wound.
What comes next?
In physical surgery, when a deep incision heals perfectly, it leaves a scar. That scar tissue is actually stronger than the original skin.
Structurally stronger.
Think about what might happen if you let the great physician heal your hidden wound. What if the very addiction, the very trauma, the very shame that you are terrified will disqualify you from love actually becomes the exact credential you use to help someone else survive?
That is powerful.
What if, a year from now, you are sitting in a crowded room and you see someone wearing that same heavy winter coat? And because of your healed scar, you are the only person who knows how to speak their language.
You can recognize them instantly.
What if your healed wound becomes the proof to another outcast that the surgery actually works?
That is the beautiful reality of the wounded healer.
Yes, the wounded healer.
That is the life of purpose and profound connection waiting for you on the other side of the scalpel. And you absolutely do not have to walk toward that operating table alone.
No, you don't.
In fact, human beings were never psychologically or spiritually designed to heal in isolation. That is precisely why the Crosstalk Cafe exists.
That's why we're here.
That is why we are here, sitting in these chairs, having this conversation. We want to warmly, urgently invite you to stop doing this alone. We want to invite you to join our community at Peters Creek Baptist Church in South Park, Pennsylvania.
We walk this exact road together every single week. We are a room full of outcasts with healing scars, and we would be honored to have you join us.
We really would.
Let me give you the exact schedule for how our Friday evenings look, so you know exactly what to expect when you walk through the doors, removing any anxiety about the unknown.
Take the mystery out of it.
Exactly. First, on the final Friday of each month only, we start with dinner in the social hall, from 5:15 to 6 p.m.
5:15 to 6.
It is an incredibly relaxed, welcoming time to just connect, drop your guard, and break bread together.
Then, every Friday evening at 6:30 p.m., we move into large group worship. This is where we gather together collectively, focus our minds, and prepare our hearts to receive the truth and grace we need for the work ahead.
Following that, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., we break out into gender-specific small groups.
The small groups are where the real work happens.
This is the safe, highly confidential space where you can actually start talking about the heavy code. This is where you can share your hurts, hang-ups, and habits with people who absolutely understand the language you are speaking, because they speak it too.
And finally, from 8:30 to 9 p.m., we end the night together at the Crosstalk Cafe.
The best part.
It really is. It is a dedicated time for fellowship, a great cup of coffee, and dessert. It provides a vital chance to decompress, laugh, and connect after the heavy emotional lifting of the small groups.
If you want to reach out before you come, if you are nervous, or if you have any questions at all about the process, we genuinely want to hear from you.
We are always here.
You can email Craig Amstone directly at craig.amstone@gmail.com, or you can contact the church office at info@pcbc.church.
You can also find more detailed information by visiting pcbc.church. Or if you are listening to this from outside the South Park area and you want to find a recovery group geographically near you, you can visit crlocator.com.
We are so incredibly grateful to spend this time with you today. Remember, the doors to the Crosstalk Cafe are always open.
Always open.
You do not have to spend one more day wearing that heavy winter coat over your brokenness. The great physician is ready, the surgery of truth is waiting, and your complete healing is absolutely possible.
We will be right here, ready and waiting to walk that road with you.